dive right in because today we have back-to-back-to-back sessions and we got to keep to a very tight schedule. If you haven't yet and you're just arriving today, welcome. We missed you yesterday. It was amazing. Download the Kuba app, and that has the detailed agenda for you when breaks are happening. We do have lunch served today at lunch. It's a little chilly. We'll be sitting outside, so we have jackets. All right, I'm going to dive into my presentation, which is all about how to personalize your ketogenic plan. And let me grab that clicker. All right, well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kristina Hess. I am a licensed dietitian nutritionist and your host for today. My approach is functional and integrative, which just means that I take a look at how all your systems are interconnected. So when someone works with me, we take a really deep dive into all the pieces that could potentially affect your health, which is not just diet, it's a lot of other pieces too. So I like to consider myself a bit of a detective and to dive deeper into the root cause of what things are, what's happening. So how do we get best results? Well, my philosophy is that 80% of your success is psychology, right? It's your mindset, it's your adherence, compliance, right? So a lot of it is up here. And then 20% is strategy. Now, a lot of people say, well, that 80%, that's everything. But what if you have the wrong strategy, right? And you have an excellent mindset and you're just following the wrong strategy and you're not getting those results. So that is what I'm going to talk about today, because years ago, I decided to become a vegetarian, and then it escalated. I became vegan. I even went even farther than that and became a raw vegan for 4 months. And what happened to me was I fractured a couple bones over a series of months. And so my body just completely fell apart, and I knew nothing about the genetic piece, which is what I'm going to talk about today. And I didn't realize that, well, I don't really convert nutrients very well from, the genes that pertain to certain nutrients where you would derive them from plants. So if you have the wrong strategy that you're employing, but an excellent mindset, bad things can happen too. Now, you can have a great strategy and then you don't, comply. And we're going to hear from Robert Sykes today. He's going to talk all about that, which is super, super important about how to stay true to your low-carb diet, because that's actually, a lot of people can lose the weight and then they fall off. They get bored or just there's fatigue and, and the carb creep happens. So a little bit about me. I used to suffer from something called PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So the 3 days before my period, I would just go super dark. All of a sudden, very, very gloomy. The world was falling apart. And I didn't realize I have some pretty serious issues with magnesium conversion. Insomnia, had that since I was a kid. Couldn't fall asleep. I have sleep genes there too, and melatonin would have helped me a lot. Would have been good to know, good to take as a child. And IBS, I suffered from IBS, but I didn't know it was IBS, and I wasn't super connected. I had a lot of cereal, a lot of pasta with skim milk, with every meal. So that combo was just, deadly. So there are a lot of different ways to get into ketosis. Who's completely new to the ketogenic diet here? I mean, who got, okay. All right, so keto is not really a diet. Ketosis is a metabolic state where you are burning fat preferentially over glucose. Okay, so you're like a hybrid car. So if you're running on glucose primarily, that's your primary fuel source, and you're not really utilizing fat super effectively. And so when we dial down the carbohydrates, we can flip that switch to using fat, your own body fat, more efficiently. So there's just lots of different ways to do the ketogenic low-carb diet, okay? And some people feel very passionately about one way of doing it, and that's great because it works really well for them. But that may not work the best for you. So where I come in is kind of looking at these different issues that are pretty divisive for people that argue about them, like political issues, right? Like get super heated. Is coffee healthy or not? Is saturated fat terrible? Well, yeah, for some people it actually isn't great. And then dairy, right? I'm going to get into that. So the Human Genome Project was a 13-year project to sequence all of our genes. And unfortunately, the genetic piece is kind of, and this is where it's important to talk about genetics and how your entire metabolism works, because the genes are not everything, not at all. It's just a blueprint, okay? But to say that they don't matter is definitely missing an important link, because your genes code protein. And it's very important information to make sure that that information is correct. So just to give you a sense, like how new what I do is, vitamin A was really only discovered 100 years ago, okay? Vitamin A is the first one that was figured out, so then it was B1 and then B2 and so on and so on. That's how they outlined the sequence. Now in genetics, there's kind of like three major buckets. Okay, there's your ancestry, there's, there's a gene, and that one single fixed gene is a huge problem, huge disease that geneticists are trying to figure out and solve for. That's not what I do. I look at gene SNPs that actually pertain to your nutrient usage and your detoxification and how to optimize your diet so that you're epigenetically optimized in your genetic blueprint. So nutrigenetics is a little bit interchangeable. Nutrigenetics is really where you look at the spelling changes. You're like, what are my variants? And then nutrigenomics is a little bit more of an art of how to optimize those spelling changes and make you better. So this concept, nature versus nurture, right? So nature is really your genetic blueprint. And the nurture piece is your lifestyle, right? So how are you going to live to optimize that? And there's this saying, which I don't really love, but there's no better one. Your genetics load the gun and your lifestyle pulls the trigger. So really that's the most, epi means above genetics. So how you live, what you eat, how you exercise, how you handle stress, all of that, whether you're sleeping, not sleeping, is far more important because, again, just the blueprint. But diet is the single most important influencer of your genes, okay? Now, food is not just fuel, it really is information. So if you're gonna put in poor information, you're gonna get poor quality output. I like to tell this story because it really made things real for me in this realm. A few years back, I'm working on Zoom now, mostly, and my computer was totally taken over. One of these like frozen moments, flashing, call this number. And so I called the number and they're like, just give us control and we'll, pay us $300 and we'll unlock your computer and protect you from all the hackers. And so I was like, okay, no, that totally, but I needed my computer unlocked. And I just realized we are such a complex, biochemical computer. And, if we're putting poor information in, then we also can get hacked. We get the malware, we get the viruses. So it's really, really important. And this is really, so inflammation is really the name of the game, right? So we want to manage inflammation. Acute inflammation is, your immune system online, instant, there's a problem, it usually hurts, maybe you need to go to the ER, and that's okay because it's signaling that there's a very real issue. But chronic inflammation is where now you have this low, steady state irritation in your body that needs to be addressed, and that leads to cascade of problems. And there are some genes that I can look at to see if the inflammation is active. It's really important when I'm going over a nutrigenomics test to see, is it actually real for you? Because you're not just a bunch of data, right? You're not just a bunch of numbers and letters. It has to also clinically correlate to what's going on in your life. But these are all the different things, right? Sleep deprivation, dehydration, the artificial sweeteners are just awful, smoking, processed food. Now, dairy is a huge problem. We'll talk about that. Sugar, wheat, trans fats, vegetable oil. You guys are going to hear many people today talk about vegetable oil. The seed oils are literally, hands down, the worst thing you could put in your body. MSG, preservatives, alcohol, let's be mindful with that. Molds, plastics, this is a huge thing to consider. Some people don't detoxify well, and this can have a huge impact. And then electromagnetic frequencies. So our goal is not just to live longer, right? Live to maybe be a centenarian or beyond, but to have, not just great lifespan, but have great health span. So you want to, if we do our part, we can live well beyond this sort of average age of 78 if we do our part, okay? And, we're sort of fascinated with these centenarians that, what are they doing? And this comes from Dr. Peter Attia, who I admire very much, but, these are 5 components that he says are the most important pieces to health span. So we've got nutrient sensing versus autophagy, which is that protein cleansing that happens when you fast. It's when you don't eat. So when you're eating, what are you putting in? And then what's happening when you're not eating? And then your mitochondrial function, is it efficient? Is it damaged? Right? So cancer cell is damaged. And then management of inflammation, right? Reactive oxygen species. This is super important, your insulin sensitivity and glucose disposal. And then this is stem cells versus zombie cells, like dead cells in your body, where autophagy can kind of clean those up. So a couple things we know for sure about longevity is that social support is actually the most important thing for living a very healthy life, okay? We also know for sure that caloric restriction, so just eating a lot less, and so fasting is really important for living longer. And that, as I mentioned, diet is the biggest epigenetic influencer of your genes and can influence up to 4 generations down the road. So this is huge for parents, right? And, we have a very renowned fertility doc here. So this is super important that what you eat, both the mother and the father, it influences down the road. So what's DNA? DNA, it's present in nearly every cell in your body, and it's important to note that 99.9% of us are all the same, right? But in this 0.1 of differences, we have 3 to 4 million DNA variations. So just to give you a sense, wolves and dogs, they also share 99.9%. So DNA is just a language. I sort of consider myself an interpreter, and I'm constantly learning because this is very new science. And it's just spelling changes. I don't, we say it's mutations or variations, but it's a strong word. And when you look at these 3 images, goat, boat, and coat, those are 3 very different things. And all you've done is one spelling change. So that's a lot like, reading the DNA. Okay, and that's what these are 3 people, and we just have this one spelling change makes all the difference. So when we're looking at something, wild type is what's considered normal. So most of the population has that. Then there's heterozygous and homozygous. But as I said before, the gene SNPs that I'm looking at, they're very malleable genes. They're not fixed genes. They're not high impact. Some are a little higher impact than others, like an ApoE gene, but you want to look together at them like families, okay, family groups, and that is where a story gets told. You know, words get put together like sentences and then paragraphs. This is an interesting one, though. This one is a higher impact, the collagen, because it can impact the difference in how people train. Okay, so protein, and you heard Maria speak about it yesterday, protein is supremely important. It comes from a Greek word meaning first place. So there are a bunch of interesting gene SNPs to look together there on how you may do with, say, whether red meat can actually spike your glucose or not, or whether bacon, is okay for you or not, or whether you need more fish in your diet. Now, carbohydrates are kind of confusing to people. They don't understand that carbohydrates are really all the plant foods, and they're broken out into three major categories. We've got sugars, starches, and fiber. And it's true about the fiber, we don't really digest it well, but for some people who have issues with their gut bacteria, it actually is helpful. So that may be a point of disagreement that I may have with some of my colleagues, but, and there's some other gene SNPs where fiber, the green leafies are actually pretty helpful, especially if you have issues with methylation. So, but all people who are, this is the one area where we can agree. We want to remove sugars and starches when we're doing a low-carb ketogenic plan. And these are just some gene SNPs to look at. TCF7L2 is a higher impact gene regarding grains and diabetes. And this one is correlated to amylase, so the ability to break down those carbohydrates starting in the mouth. So fats, all right? We literally will go crazy or die because essential fatty acids means that the body does not make them, and so we need them from our diet. And your brain is 60% fat. Omega-3 is essential for proper cellular communication, and fat produces all of our hormones. Okay, there's such confusion around cholesterol, and that's a conversation I feel like I have every single day. So these are some of the letters I look at with regards to fat. Those are just some of them. Now it's really interesting. So the Inuit are the only population on planet Earth who cannot get into ketosis. Okay, so they're the only, and they actually follow a ketogenic plan. But the reason, so their genes evolved, right, to prevent it so that they wouldn't get too lean. So literally that means that everybody else on planet Earth can do keto. Now, you may have some issues with PPAR, which is this gene. And this whole family of PPAR is all important for fat usage. So some people who have variants here really benefit from supplementing with L-carnitine, because L-carnitine is something that shuttles your fatty acids into the mitochondria to help you be more efficient. And some people who are great with PPAR-G are really great with endurance exercise because they have better VO2 max. And literally, there are no Olympians who don't have what we call the Olympian genes. So that's all potential, right? So if you exercise your potential, then you can optimize. This is a newer one to me, and newer one to the test I use, MTNR1B. It's about melatonin. It's a melatonin receptor gene. And this has been shown to have very, very strong impact on your insulin sensitivity, especially if you eat late at night, higher risk. So there's newer research on early time-restricted feeding, that it's beneficial to stop eating even by 2 or 3 or 4 p.m. And that's pretty hard to do. It's terrible for socializing. But if you can kind of use that more often in your life and stop eating earlier, I mean, I've eaten late my whole life. Just, you know, we grew up in Europe, and my family likes to eat late, and it's hard to break that pattern. So I struggle with that myself, but I've been doing more of that lately, and I actually feel really good when I do it. Okay, coffee. So, right, yes, we heard about how terrible coffee is yesterday. So there is a distinction between the slow metabolizer and the fast metabolizer. And the fast metabolizer is what we'd call a mutation. Okay, it's actually an anomaly, but people with that genotype, it's AA, actually will reap the benefits of the antioxidants from the coffee and feel good. Now, I'm not saying drink 10 cups of coffee a day. That's not good. And you also want to correlate it to a CGM and see if coffee really is spiking your blood sugar and causing a problem. Or does it kick you out of ketosis if you're measuring that, which you should be. So, but for the CC type, okay, the slow metabolizer, they'll get anxious, they'll have the heart palpitations, and they won't feel good, okay? They really won't. And so you can sort of clinically correlate. And a lot of people sort of already know that about themselves, like, oh, coffee really doesn't make me feel that good. And I get angsty and I feel weird, and they avoid it. Maybe they switch to something else. But there's a reason why. Okay, dairy. So this gene is correlated to lactose and something called lactase persistence, which is weird, right? We're supposed to, be weaned off of milk by age 6. Okay, so it is also an adaptation, a mutation to be able, to break down dairy. So literally 3/4 of the planet does not do well on dairy. And this is a big confusion in the keto world because, I know when I bump up against just regular folks, they're like, keto. They just have this idea that we're just all eating a boatload of cream cheese and sour cream, and you really shouldn't be doing that anyway, because it is pretty inflammatory. Now, smaller amounts of cheese or dairy, it's okay. And it's interesting because one of my parents should not be having dairy. The other one is totally adapted for dairy, and so I landed in the middle. And I love dairy, by the way. So it's a little bit of, it's a crutch to have the dairy to help you along in your ketogenic plan. But just check also, again, correlate to how you feel. And are you getting, skin breakouts and things like that? So there's a bunch of mental health genes that I look at in my report as well. And, these are all super important to optimize as well, right? We have almost like a depression and anxiety epidemic in our country as well, mostly because the diet is so poor, but there's places to optimize here as well. Okay, so detoxification is a whole pathway that I also look at in my report, and these are your 5 major detoxification pathways. Now it's interesting, right, because there are some centenarians that smoke and they live to be 105, and it's weird, right? We know that smoking is not healthy, but that is good genetic clearance. That's all it is, okay? It's not because we know that's really bad for us, but that is really fast detoxification at work. Okay, so environmental toxicity, this is super important and not to be discounted. So your cookware is very, very, not just what you eat, but what you're cooking on is very, very important to consider. Literally a true story, I was talking about this, and I talked about Teflon toxicosis, which is what, the off-gassing of the Teflon from your nonstick cookware, and it can kill a pet bird, right? Because like canary in the coal mine situation. And literally this young woman came up to me and she goes, now I know what happened to my bird. Like I just didn't know I killed my bird. And you can tell, maybe you have like an air filter and you cook with something and the air filter turns on. So I encourage you to change up that cookware and also invest in a good air filter. We have a molecule and it's wonderful. There's a test that I run if you are a stubborn clinical case, like you're eating well, you're doing all the things, but something's not right, you got to go deeper. So there's a good, to check for toxic load. And this is also a very fascinating topic that, I could spend a whole half hour on here, but mold and mycotoxins are something also newer in the health community that is really getting more attention. And there is mold present in foods. So anything stored dry, like grains, beans. Yes, coffee can be moldy, so you do want to buy coffee that has been sort of cleansed of that. And this is also, there's urine testing for this that I do as well. It's great if, again, stubborn cases, especially with skin issues. So if you're not getting the results that you want, you want to see if it's a hormone imbalance. Are you eating the wrong foods for you? Maybe you have sensitivities. Maybe you do have environmental toxicity. Maybe it's malabsorption, right? Gut bacteria. You have a lot of external life stressors. Who doesn't have that? And then this piece, not eating for your genetic code. And you want to put all these things together, right? Because you are a complex puzzle, a very advanced biochemical being. So thank you so much.